You are watching Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Bruno Edgard, and today we are tackling the issue of wetlands, and we have been seeing all the stories on the news about how some people have been kicked out of wetlands as NEMA is taking the fight against encroachment on wetlands, and we shall see really if this is a worthy fight and if this is something that we need to defend or we need to question. And also we're going to get into the conversation on environmental degradation and its effects on our society and what NEMA is doing to fight that as well. My guest for today is Mr. Tony Achidria, who is a Senior Public Relations Officer from the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA. Thank you for coming to Issues at Hand. You are very welcome.
Thank you, Bruno. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting me. And I'm looking forward to having this discussion and engagement.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is good. Now, as we like doing here on Issues at Hand, because sometimes we like to think we know about things and yet we might not actually know. So I put it to you, what is the mandate of NEMA, especially when it comes to, of course, our environment?
Thank you, Bruno. NEMA is an acronym that stands for the National Environment Management Authority. We are an authority established by law. We started in 1995 with the National Environment Act, the National Environment Act, and then subsequently in 2019 there was the National Environment Act number 5 of the National Environment Act number 5 of 2019, which was a review of the initial law that established NEMA. NEMA was established as the principal agency in the country. We are responsible for coordinating, monitoring, and regulating, as well as supervising all activities related to the environment. So NEMA plays a principal function. We are a supervisory body, and we supervise lead agencies that have an aspect of environment in their day-to-day operations. So that is what NEMA is in summary.
So the major mandate is to protect our environment.
NEMA's mandate and roles are clearly stipulated in the National Environment Act, the law that establishes us as an institution. There are many, but key among these, we have a role to advise on the formulation and implementation of environmental and climate change policies and programs. NEMA also has a role to advise on legislative proposals and standards that are in regard to the environment and natural resources. Further still, NEMA has a role to mainstream and integrate environmental concerns in the national and sectoral plans of the country Uganda. Like I said earlier, NEMA plays a coordination role as well. We coordinate lead agencies to ensure that they account for the execution of the aspects of environment within their respective mandates. To add on that,
what are some of these agencies?
These lead agencies. So environment is really a wide subject. Almost all agencies have an aspect of environment in them, but key among these that should be of interest agencies like the National Forestry Authority, that is specifically in charge of forests, Uganda Wildlife Authority, specifically in charge of protected areas and the wildlife of this country, local governments such as the KCCAs and municipal councils of this country. Why? Because environment management is decentralized, and in the current law, management of the environment is at the lowest level of governance. So NEMA also looks at what these local governments are doing in the management of the environment within their jurisdictions. But that is not all. We also do like I said, regulation and monitoring of issues related to the environment. We, as one of our key functions and roles, we review and make decisions on environmental and social impact assessments, environmental audits, and other studies and reports that are submitted to NEMA in, in accordance with the law. I think I'll come back to environment and social impact assessments later, but further, we as an institution, NEMA, we also issue permits and licenses for the use of certain aspects of natural resources. We undertake and coordinate monitoring, inspections, and compliance audits of within the environment. And then key as well is that we prepare and disseminate the National State of the Environment Report. Now, this is a document that that sets record straight of how our environment is doing. We prepare the National State of Environment Report. It's one of our functions, and this report is prepared every 2 years. So in this report, we document the status of the environment, how our forests doing, how our lakeshores doing, how our wetlands doing, how is the air quality, what are the challenges, where are the gains, and how have these things been tackled. This is in the National State of Environment Report. The latest one that is currently out is 2018-2019, and the process of producing the latest one of 2019-2020 is ongoing. Hopefully, if all goes well, it should be out by next year, give or take. But we are mandated to produce these National State of Environment reports every 2 years. As I conclude on the roles that NEMA does, another key thing that NEMA as an institution does is that we coordinate and implement multilateral environment agreements. Now, like I said earlier, the environment is very wide, and it is not something that is limited by country borders. The impact of something in the environment in Uganda may affect the environment in a neighboring country. There are things like cross-border resources. We have River Nile that starts from Jinja up to Egypt. We have Lake Victoria, which is shared between the 3 East African countries. Air, we have forests that that cut across borders, and the management of these things, the management of these things is undertaken in such a way that there are agreements with where these resources are located. These are multilateral agreements. Some of them are regional, let's say East Africa. Others are continent-wide. Others are international because, well, natural resources, like I said earlier, can have an effect that cuts across borders. So we have multilateral agreements that we coordinate and implement. Things like the Minamata Convention on Mercury, things like the Basel and Rotterdam Conventions. We are also party to items discussed at the United Nations Environment Programme and the likes. All these are multilateral issues that may arise: climate change, global warming. So all these that that are related to the environment, NEMA coordinates and does the implementation. There are really a multitude of them. If I mentioned all of them, maybe I would need more time. And finally, another role of NEMA is to enforce the provisions of the National Environment Act, the act that makes us be the institution that we are. So that is what, in summary, what NEMA does.
All right, thank you. It's now important. I think you can see that we understand the role of NEMA as we get into our discussion. NEMA's role on protection of wetlands. But to ask, what is you talked about the status of the environment.
Yes.
What, as we speak, maybe if you have insight from that 2018-2019 report, what
Yes.
is the status of our environment here in Uganda, especially when it pertains to places like wetlands?
Thank you, Bruno. The status of our environment is both, we have areas where there are gains, and then we have areas where there are negatives. And these are facts that are documented. The State of Environment report is available. It is a public document, first of all. But I would like to draw your attention to 3 key areas. One will be forests, the second will be wetlands, and then the third would be wildlife. Of course, these are not the only aspects of the environment that are covered in the report. There are others, but I think these are some of the key ones that would be of interest. Now, the issue of forest cover is both bad and good. Why? Let me approach it from a historical perspective. At the time of independence, in about 1962 and before that, the national forest cover in the country, in Uganda, was slightly over 50% of the land area in Uganda. Over 50% of Uganda were forests. It was forested. Okay, and that was good. We moved to about 1990 or thereabout, which is about 1990 thereabout. By 1990, the forest cover, the national forest cover in the entire Uganda, had dropped from the slightly over 50% to about 20, on an average of 25%. So it had reduced by half in the by around 1990. Okay, the exact year you can get it in the National State of Environment report. It's available. As if that is not enough, by the time we moved to the year 2000, around 2000, the mid 2000, around 2010 there, the forest cover had reduced further from that 20% to about 8%, a downward trajectory. That was the forest cover of Uganda.
So scary.
Yes, it is something that raised concern, and it's one of the reasons I believe government decided to be deliberate and intentional in reversing this trend. So we see that from the time of independence up to about 2010, forest cover had reduced from 50-something% to about 8%. Now, then from 2010 to about 2017, there was a slight increase between 2017 to 2017, around 2017. The forest cover, for the very first time in the history of Uganda, there was an increase, a net gain in forest cover from that 8% to about 11%. It is not where we want to be, but at least we are taking the steps in the right direction. Okay, so that 11% was as per the records of the 2019 National State of Environment report. Currently, reviews are ongoing, and the projection is that we might be at 15% by in the next report, which will cover 2019-2020. But let us wait for the findings, and then when the findings are finally reviewed, that the actual figure will be made public. But currently, according to the National State of Environment report, we are at about 11%, which is a slight increase of just 3%. From the downward trend that that I had explained to you. Secondly,
that is something to celebrate.
Yeah, it is something to celebrate, and we are working to have that even grow further. I will tell you that the target is to grow it to at least 20% back to 20% by the time we get into the next decade of 2030 to 2040. That is the intention, and that is what we are working on. There are a number of initiatives that we have put in place to achieve that, to try and achieve that objective, but I think I'll get back to that at a later time. We move on to wetlands.
Yes, to the
issue,
big issue.
To the issue of wetlands. Wetlands, the story of wetlands has also not been rosy. It is a fact, and that has been documented as well. And these details are available still in the National State of Environment Report. In around 1993-1994, the national wetland cover, that is for the entire Uganda, the entire landmass of Uganda, the wetland cover was at 16%. 16% of Uganda was covered by wetlands. That was 1994, thereabout. We skip to 2017. The coverage reduced by half to about 8%. Okay, so there was another 50% disappearance of wetlands between 1994 and 2017. As if that is not enough, out of the 8%, about 3% is degraded. 3% of the available wetlands are degraded.
What do you mean when you say degraded?
Degraded means that they are they are not able to perform their ecological functions. They have been they either do not have enough water or vegetation, or they are not performing their functions anymore. Okay, they are known that this is an area of wetland, but it is not performing its work as a wetland, so it is degraded. You understand? So that is 3%, about 3% of the available 8% of wetlands are degraded. Okay? Now, if this is not addressed, if the downward trend in wetlands is not addressed, the projections are that by 2030, the wetland cover in Uganda will reduce to just 1%.
Just 1%. Statistics have backed up the information that you've been giving us, and it shows that as far as wetlands are concerned, we are on a downward trajectory.
Yes, that is true, and it is unfortunate, and we hope to reverse that. Before we went for that break, like I was saying, if this trajectory is not stopped, if it is not halted right now, by 2030 we shall be at 1%, and that is a very dire situation. If
1%?
Yes.
Ooh.
That will be a very dire situation, because if that happens, and I really pray that it doesn't, we shall see an escalation of what we are already seeing. The flooding will be more. The erratic rainfall that we are already experiencing will be more. There will be longer droughts, and we know Uganda's economy and the
fact that it's agricultural.
Yes. Yeah, will be affected. The number of people that survive on domestic subsistence agriculture, actually, that will be affected.
I'd like you to touch more on that, because as we prepare to get into the whole conversation of encroachment on wetlands,
yes,
the thing I want to understand, and maybe some viewers would like to understand, are the effects of encroachment on these wetlands. We talked about environmental degradation. How does encroaching on these wetlands lead to these floods that you're warning us about?
Thank you, Bruno. Wetlands are not in existence by mistake. God put these wetlands in the areas where they are to serve particular purposes. So if the Creator put these resources in the areas where they are, and we as humans think we are wiser than the Creator to remove them, to stop them from performing their natural functions, then that is laughable. What are the functions of wetlands? Wetlands play very vital functions. I'll just highlight a few. Wetlands play a function of flood control. Flood control how? When it rains and water is running off from hilly areas, from other areas, from the land generally, this water ends up in the wetlands. So the wetlands act as
it's like a basin. It collects the water.
A sponge. I'll call it a sponge, where this water will collect, and once this water is collected in this sponge, it is released slowly into the freshwater holding area, which are the lakes. So if you destroy the holding area of this water, it means the water will run straight away into the lakes, and the lake can only hold so much because it is not elastic. So when the water goes directly into the lake, it will have to expand, and in expanding, that is when we see the floods. We see the floods because the holding area of the water is not there anymore, so all the water is going directly into the freshwater holding area, which is the lake. So the multiplier effect is that you will see the floods. Now, that is not all. Wetlands play a function of filtration of water. When it rains and there is runoff, this water collects all sorts of things from the air, from your roofs, from from garbage heaps and the likes. This water has to eventually end up in the lake. The wetland is a natural filtration ecosystem to sieve out these chemicals, these unwanted debris, the pollutants basically, that would actually end up in the lake. So if there is no wetland, all that pollution ends up in the lake. And when that happens, it will affect the fish. You won't be able to eat fish. It will affect the water quality. You won't be able to get clean drinking water. It has an effect on the economy because right now it is a fact also that national water is spending more to treat water for human consumption. Why? Because the wetland buffering around the sources of the water that they use to supply for domestic purposes has dwindled. So in essence, they are spending more, which translates into higher bills, and it is you and me who suffer. Now, wetlands are they also hold methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas that if released into the atmosphere, will damage the ozone layer. When the ozone layer is damaged, that means the ultraviolet rays of the sun will come directly onto the planet, causing global warming. And when those ultraviolet rays get in touch with us, there are risks of things like cancer. To add on, wetlands are a habitat for very many species. Insects, fish species, birds. The national bird, our national bird, the crested crane, its major habitat is in the wetlands. Now, by destroying wetlands, we are destroying our national identifier, our national bird. Wetlands play so many functions. Their habitats, they play regulatory functions and all these. So, by destroying them, we are destroying our very existence. We're
destroying our country and our existence.
Yes.
And the reason I had to ask that is because I want us to understand, as we prepare to get into this conversation, that there are big effects when it comes to environmental degradation. We spoke about forests, wetlands as well, and I know we shall also touch on it when it comes to wildlife. Now, what is the cause of this? The degradation of wetlands? Is it encroachment? Is that the major factor that comes into the degradation of wetlands?
Yes, basically encroachment, but encroachment is should be viewed from different perspectives. One, there is encroachment for settlement. Two, there is encroachment for agriculture. And three, there is encroachment for development purposes. Things, well, I wouldn't want to call it encroachment per se, because if, let's say, a road or a communication line passes through a wetland, that is permitted, because government is permitted to use this resource for these purposes. Okay, but
actually, that's what I wanted to also ask.
Yes.
Now we have seen one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is because we have seen recently that there is a project now, an ongoing project by NEMA to restore wetlands, and we have seen in many places like Lubiji, Chinawataka, and even now Butaleja, NEMA has come out with enforcement to remove encroachers from these wetlands, and a lot of people are complaining. For example, in Butaleja, there are a lot of farmers who are growing rice there, and they're saying, now are they going to survive? Can NEMA resettle us somewhere else so that we can continue with our livelihoods? But again, like in Lubiji, there was a question of permission from NEMA and KCCA, because some of the people, especially who are running the taxi park, came out and said that they got permission from NEMA and KCCA to be on that wetland. Now, it brings me to that question of what is the status quo as far as wetlands are concerned, and having activities on wetlands. And if it's the case, because according to the constitution, people are not supposed to settle in wetlands. If that's the case, are there scenarios where NEMA and the relevant authorities grant permission to people to use wetlands? For example, you've said in the instance of when there's a road that's going to be made.
Yes. Thank you, Bruno. There are different angles from which I could tackle your question, but I will start with what the law says. One, the National Environment Act is clear on what activities are permitted in wetlands. Of course, they are permitted, but they have to be regulated. And these are listed in Schedule 6 of the National Environment Act, or if you look at the Wetlands Riverbanks regulations of 2000, these activities are also listed. They include, among others, things like brick making, recreation, sand and clay mining, commercial exploitation, sewage filtration, construction of transport and communication items, roads, masts, and the likes, fish farming, and then harvesting those items. I'll call them items, resources that are available, that occur in wetlands. But these have to be regulated. Okay. Now, in terms of issuing permission to undertake these activities, I need to bring it to your attention that because of the trends that I've already explained to you about the downward trend the downward trend in wetland coverage in the country, on September 2nd, 2021, which was last year, September 2nd, 2021, NEMA as an institution took a deliberate move to stop issuing, considering, or receiving applications for development activities that are within wetlands. And that notice was made public. It is known that from September 2nd, we are not issuing any approval for development within wetlands. Okay. Now, the reason for doing that was to help government create an enabling framework to one, to reverse the trends of wetland degradation, and two, to put in place a framework for sustainable management of this resource. That happened on September 2nd last year. Now, since that time, we have gone through a process of educating the public about the correct use of these resources. How can they be used sustainably? What would be the impacts if they are not used sustainably? And then we have also had engagements with community leaders and different stakeholders. We have had engagements with religious leaders, with cultural leaders, and civil society organizations to try and bring out the plight that Ugandans risk facing if they do not reverse this encroachment on wetlands. What you saw at Lubigi specifically is not the beginning of a restoration process. No. If I could say this, it is in the third. What you saw is in the third quarter of a restoration cycle, because the restoration cycle starts with public education and awareness, which we did with the communities, through the media engagements, talking to people about what they ought to do. That happened. Then, after raising awareness, we move on to now there are two varying steps here. If it is within a regulated environment, in terms of maybe industry or something that was approved, we can go for compliance assistance. That is where we help a developer to put in place measures to enable them utilize the resources in the way we guided. Okay, compliance assistance, but that happens for the regulated community. Now, in the unregulated community, after raising awareness, we issue restoration orders, asking them to either leave voluntarily or restore the area and the likes. Okay, so we issue restoration orders, and then the restoration order has a minimum of 21 working days, within which you are expected to comply. So for Lubigi, these restoration orders were issued as far back as June 2nd. And these restoration orders were issued after raising awareness within these communities. Okay? So it is after failing to comply to the restoration orders, because the restoration orders tells you, the restoration orders tell you what we have done. We tell you what our inspectors found when they came to the area to inspect the site. Some details in such restoration orders could be, maybe we found that you had encroached on a wetland, you had deposited maybe sand or some alien material in an ecosystem where it is not supposed to be, or maybe you were releasing effluent or some form of pollution into the environment. These things are stated there, and then we instruct you to either leave, to either replace, or to do something to reverse what you have done. It is when you fail to comply to the restoration order that we move in to enforcement. Now, most of what the media fraternity is interested in is the enforcement exercise. But at the time the enforcement happens, there is a lot of work that has been done in the background, which for some reason is not highlighted. Okay? Now, the enforcement is also not the end of the process. The enforcement involves, like you saw, maybe arrests, pulling down the illegal structures, removing alien species. That is enforcement. Now,
and we're going to put a pin in that,
yes,
and we shall continue with this discussion on enforcement when it comes to encroachment of wetlands, and we are also going to get into the discussion of why is it that for some developers there's restoration and for others for others there is compliance. We shall see the difference between those two. But we shall also get the chance to hear from you. You can send us a WhatsApp message on 0787447684, and we will get to read out your comments or questions on this topic. Today, for those of you who have just joined us, is Mr. Tony Achidria, who is a Senior Public Relations Officer from the National Environment Management Authority, that is NEMA. And if once again, if you want to get in touch with us and you have a burning question or comment, please send us a WhatsApp message on our WhatsApp number. That's 0787447684, and our guest will answer your questions and respond to your comments. And you were talking about the stages when it comes to NEMA reinforcing the protection of our environment, especially wetlands.
Yes.
You said after restoration, but before we go to the last stage, on restoration, and I think it's a question that many people have, because it seems like the people who qualify for restoration are people who are wananchi, like the people in Luigi who are where there was a taxi park, and yet for many of these developers who have industries on these wetlands, for instance, are fit for compliance. So how is it that NEMA gets to the point where they say, when it comes to this developer, we shall urge them for compliance, and when it comes to another developer, we're going to urge them, we're going to go the tune of restoration, especially when it comes to getting them off the wetlands?
Thank you, Bruno. Before I respond to your question, let me first finalize the steps that are taken. I had spoken about enforcement, where we go and well, in like the word says itself, enforce, where we remove, do arrests and the likes. Now, after enforcement, there is what is called restoration. Now, the actual restoration. After the encroachers have been removed, then the restoration process begins. This is where we help the environment to return back to its original natural form. If it is a wetland, for instance, we, for example, we might build check dams to ensure that water recirculates within. We block the channels that had been built within the wetland to drain the water, and then build check dams to make sure water circulates again in the ecosystem. We might also bring in these wetland species like papyrus and then spread in the area that had been encroached on, and then we monitor and we monitor it over a period of time to make sure that it is able to regenerate. So that is the end of the of the restoration process, the restoration cycle. Okay, although what many people unfortunately know about is only the enforcement. Yeah. To respond to your question about NEMA targeting low-income earners vis-a-vis those that are seemingly well-to-do, I think that is not true. And the immediate example I will give you still is Lubigi. Okay, among the individuals or entities where we carried out the enforcement, there was someone or a company, an entity that was undertaking the manufacturing of construction materials, blocks, bricks, and things like that, and they had very powerful machines, and that was also brought down. I don't think that that entity qualifies as a low income, as something belonging to a low income person. Still in Lubigi, the area, one of the areas was a park for trucks, lorries, and bulldozers and earth-moving equipment. I don't think low-income earners really can afford that equipment per se. These you could qualify them as well-to-do well-to-do people. Still in Lubiji, we also had activity at what is it called, where they deal in wood and timber. Carpentry, large stores of timber and carpentry. I don't think that is also something by low income earners. That aside, we also had engagements with people who were doing farming of potatoes, cabbage, and other food crops within the wetland. I think those are the ones whose plight you are highlighting. Now, it is not that we are targeting these farmers who farm things within the wetlands. Our concern is from a broader perspective. Urban wetlands such as Lubiji are known to contain dangerous metals and chemicals such as lead and mercury. When you plant your potatoes, your cabbage, whatever food crops there, and then you make Ugandans eat that food, in essence you are poisoning the communities. And when you consume foods, yams and the likes that are grown in urban wetlands, you are consuming mercury and lead. And these chemicals have a negative impact on our health. They are known to cause cancer, they are known to have an effect on the central nervous system and the likes. Medical research has shown that. So it is not that we are targeting low-income earners. If you look at it from a broader perspective, the danger is to you and me, to all of us. You might go to the market and buy whatever it is you're buying from the market, but you are poisoning yourself, okay? So that is one of the ways to look at it. But secondly, these food crops are not naturally occurring in wetlands. They are not naturally occurring species in wetlands. The species that occur naturally in wetlands are known. There is papyrus and then there are certain grass species. These are known, and if you remember what I said earlier, God was wise enough to have those specific species in the wetlands. We cannot be wiser than God to introduce other species that he allowed us to grow elsewhere on dry land in the wetlands. There is no way we can be wiser than God.
Thank you for explaining that, and you have a lot of explaining to do because
yes.
we have received comments and queries from our viewers. Thank you for sending in your comments and queries as usual, and I'm going to get right into it now. I will start with Stuart from Nansana who says, we have seen NEMA officials issue out permits to the wealthy investors. What is the difference between them and the encroachers?
Thank you, Stuart. Like I said, government projects within wetlands are permitted. Then the activities that are permitted within wetlands are also known, and the list is available in Schedule 6 of the National Environment Act and also the Wetlands Riverbanks Regulations of 2000. Now, when permission is given to undertake these activities, it is not a blank check. The permission comes with conditions attached. If you look at environment and social impact assessment certificates that we issue, there are always conditions attached to them. And these conditions stipulate one, where you will dispose of waste, two, how you can utilize that ecosystem without affecting its ability to perform its other natural functions, without affecting its ability to support biodiversity and wildlife, and the likes. And then aside from giving these certificates, we do continuous monitoring. The continuous monitoring is periodical, and when we find that you are not complying, then we engage our processes of what needs to be done. What does the law say needs to be done? Do we close? Do we go for compliance assistance? Do we basically we let the law take its course? Because one, we are here as an institution to ensure that there is sustainable development that meets our needs but does not compromise the needs of the future generations.
Yes.
Natural resources are here for us to use, but they're here not for us to use alone.
We have to use them responsibly.
Our predecessors, our ancestors used them and left them for us. So we have no right to say that now that we are here, we can use them irresponsibly, and then our children and their children's children don't have what to use. No.
On the
yes.
issue of permission,
yes.
and it seems everyone is really trying to focus on that issue of permits.
Yes.
Because Cynthia here from Luzira says almost the bigger part of Butabika is in the wetland, and what is NEMA's strategy to resettle the occupants. And then secondly, which is also related to that, is from Mugisha Frank, who says the Namamve Industrial Park is in a wetland. Does NEMA really understand the boundaries of these areas to warn the public?
Okay, I will start with Cynthia. Thank you for that question. The issue of Butabika is one that we have looked into closely, and remember I talked about the restoration processes. Okay, we have engaged with the people in Butabika. They are aware that they are in that they're in the wrong place. We have issued restoration orders to them. 3, we have had discussions with their leadership so far. And we have also had a few enforcement exercises in that area. The enforcement exercises have happened. I think just this year we were in an area called, that has been named Monkey Village. It's Monkey City or something like that, where development has taken place in a wetland where we had an enforcement exercise. So the Butabika issue is something that we know, and we have taken them through, through the first stages of the restoration process, and we are going to move in the same way we did to Rubiji. It is a question. It's a question of time, but we shall be engaging them.
Maybe that's to add to that point
yes.
Before you move into the Namave issue is, and it's a question even here from Mujuni Frank, who is from Natete, because he asks, of late you have evicted encroachers along the Lubiji area. Why did it take you too long, so long, to have this operation? And you've just said you are working on Butabika as well. So why does this process take so long? Because as NEMA is taking its sweet time to follow the restoration cycle, the environment is being destroyed.
Yes, I think that is, for lack of a better word, and forgive what I'm going to use, I'll call it escapism. If I could give this picture, this imagery or illustration, if you are if you are a thief, okay, and you've been a habitual thief, stealing item A, item B, item C, if you are caught stealing at item F, you don't say, why didn't you arrest me when I was stealing item what? Item A. Why didn't you arrest me when I was committing the first crime? It is still a crime. That notwithstanding, we as an institution have challenges that we face, and these are realities that we cannot run away from. Because of the challenges we face,
what are some of these challenges?
Well, there are challenges in terms of capacity, both in terms of human resource, in terms of financial resources, and these have affected our ability to intervene as we would want to intervene. For example, you might not be aware, but NEMA, National Environment Management Authority, the staffing in the National Institution for the Environment of Uganda is about 150 people. 150 to cover the entire Uganda. And of those 150, that includes administrative staff, includes support staff like drivers, and the likes. The environment inspectors alone are less than 20 for the entire country. Environment assessment officers as well are less than 20. So with such capacity, there are challenges. But that notwithstanding, we are not sitting back and lamenting and waiting for things to become rosy. There are certain interventions that we have put in place. Even with our limited staffing, one, we have managed to set up regional offices to cater for the interests and issues in particular regions. We have a regional office in Mbale to cater for the east and northeastern part of the country. We have one in Lira for northern Uganda and parts of West Nile. We have one in Masindi, and this one is specific for the oil and gas region. And then we have one in Mbarara, that is to cater for the Chigezi and southwestern region. Still, staffing is a challenge, but at least within the limited resources that we have, we are trying to reach out to as far much of the country that we can. Number two, we are establishing partnerships with those who love our environment. We have partnerships with CSOs, civil society organizations. We have partnerships with the media to raise awareness about the environment, because environment is us, okay? Environment affects all of us. Yeah. Actually, environment is not something that man is out of. Man is part and parcel of the environment. So if we do not treat it with the due respect that it deserves, it is us that will suffer. There is a saying that if man is removed from the environment will thrive. But if the environment is removed from man, there is no way man can survive. So we need the environment more than the environment needs us. Yes.
Thank you so much. Give us your concluding remark, as well as very quickly dispensing with the question on Namamve.
Okay, I'll start with the question on Namamve. Namamve was degazetted as an industrial park. It was degazetted as an industrial park, and the processes for degazettement are known. There are legal processes that that government approves through the relevant hierarchies, from Parliament, Cabinet, and the likes, down to the local governments of the area. So it was a government decision to degazette that area as an industrial park, and we work within the law. Okay, so what we do now, yes, matter. It is a government matter. It is legally in existence. Okay, what we do is regulate the activities that are there to make sure that things like pollution do not happen. Things like pollution of water, air, and the likes do not happen. To make sure that the area is used sustainably. My final remarks would be that let us respect nature. Nature is stronger than all of us. If nature decides to fight back, we shall be on the losing side. So NEMA as an institution, in all the activities we do, we are trying to make sure that Ugandans and everyone living in Uganda understands that nature is stronger than all of us. We need to utilize our resources sustainably. We need to follow the law. Let us not be adamant. We know what is right. And if you are not sure, there are channels for consultation. Go through your district environment officer, go through your district. Environment management is now decentralized. You will be guided on how to utilize the natural resource within your jurisdiction sustainably. I thank you, Bruno.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. Unfortunately, when you're having a very good conversation, time runs so quickly, but that is it for now on issues at hand today. And please, let us respect the environment. Thank you for watching Issues at Hand. God richly bless you.